Forward. A question no one wants to answer. It's often said that motherhood is the happiest moment in a woman's life. When a child is born, all pain vanishes. The mother will naturally smile. Life will seem more meaningful than ever. But what if it's not like that? What if a mother sits in her familiar room, watching her sleeping child, but feels strangely empty inside? What if, instead of happiness, she feels tired, lost, and wants to cry without knowing why? What if, after becoming a mother, she doesn't feel good enough, doesn't feel connected as everyone says? There are emotions that many mothers experience, but no one dares to speak out. Not because they don't love their children, but because they are afraid. Afraid of being judged as selfish. Afraid of being told, what's there to be sad about after becoming a mother? Afraid of themselves, of not feeling the happiness that society always expects. And so they choose silence. Smile when someone is watching. Be strong when necessary. But in very private moments, they feel themselves slowly disappearing. This video isn't meant to judge. Nor is it to say that motherhood is wrong. This video exists to ask a very real question. Why do some mothers, despite having everything, still not feel happy? If you are feeling this way, at least, you are not the only one. The pressure to be a happy mother, the invisible cage. No one will tell you directly. You are obligated to be happy as a mother. But in a very subtle way, society makes you believe it's a given. From the glamorous photos on social media, where mothers are always radiant, well-groomed, and cradling their children with tender eyes. From the stories told, that after giving birth, life changes completely, and all the fatigue becomes worthwhile. And from the familiar wishes, wishing you and your child happiness. Gradually, happiness ceases to be an emotion. It becomes an obligation. A sad mother will begin to ask herself, is there something wrong with me? I have a child, why do I still feel empty? Am I being ungrateful to life? The pressure doesn't come with corporal punishment. It comes with comparison. Comparing yourself to other mothers. Comparing your true feelings to the ideal image society has created. And in that comparison, many mothers silently conclude, I've lost. There are seemingly harmless statements, but they deeply ingrained in the mind. Having a healthy child is happiness enough. What more could you ask for? Many people want to be mothers but can't. You'll get used to it. Every mother is tired. These statements unintentionally teach mothers one thing. Right finger, your feelings don't matter. You're allowed to be tired, but you're not allowed to be sad. You're allowed to sacrifice, but you're not allowed to complain. You're allowed to be exhausted, as long as you still smile. Answer: an invisible cage is built. A cage made of expectations. Through the standards of a good mother. Through the fear of being judged. Inside that cage, the mother learns to play her role perfectly. Outside, she is a strong woman. A capable mother. Someone who always says, I'm fine. But only they know that there are nights when they hold their child and their tears flow inward. There are times when they look at themselves in the mirror and no longer recognize themselves. There are moments when they wish they could go back to being a normal person, to sleep, to breathe, to be vulnerable. The most terrifying thing about this cage is not the exhaustion, but the silence. Because when a mother believes she has no right to be unhappy, she won't speak out. She won't seek help. She won't allow herself to heal. She tells herself, maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe I'm weak. It will pass. But some things don't go away on their own when suppressed. They just silently grow in the shadows. Postpartum depression, very often, doesn't begin with intense sadness. It begins with being forced to be happy. And when that expectation cannot be met, the mother turns to punishing herself. What is postpartum depression? It's not just a little sad. Many people, when they hear about postpartum depression, often think it's just a little sad. I'll be tired for a few weeks and then I'll be fine. It's just overthinking. But postpartum depression is not that simple. Postpartum depression is a real mental health condition that occurs after a woman gives birth. It's not weakness. It's not a lack of willpower. And it's certainly not because the mother doesn't love her child enough. First, it's important to clarify. Right finger, a mother's emotions after childbirth don't just come from her mind. They also come from her body. After childbirth, a woman's hormones change dramatically. The hormones that maintained a stable feeling during pregnancy drop sharply in a very short time. At the same time, there's prolonged sleep deprivation, physical pain, unhealed birth wounds, and the pressure of caring for a life completely dependent on her. Her body hasn't recovered, her mind hasn't adapted, but society demands that the mother be strong immediately. Many people often confuse postpartum depression with baby blues. Baby blues are a state of sadness, crying, and sensitivity, usually appearing in the first few days after childbirth and may subside on their own. Postpartum depression, however, is different. It lasts, it's insidious, and it deeply affects how the mother perceives herself, her life, and her role as a mother. A mother with postpartum depression may still be able to care for her child fully, still fulfill her responsibilities, still smile when people ask how she is. But inside, she feels empty. Everything feels heavy. Even the smallest tasks consume a lot of energy. The most important thing to emphasize: right finger postpartum depression is not a measure of love for your child. There are mothers who love their children very much, but still suffer from depression. There are mothers who are very attentive to their children, but are filled with confusion and guilt. And there are mothers who don't feel a connection immediately. This doesn't make them bad mothers. Society often portrays motherhood as a sacred moment, where love blossoms at first sight. But in reality, love, like any other relationship, takes time. When mothers don't feel it as expected, they begin to fear. They ask themselves, is there something wrong with me? Am I not normal? And these very questions push them deeper into isolation. Postpartum depression is more than just sadness. It's a disconnect from yourself, from joy, and sometimes from the world around you. It can manifest as a persistent feeling of hopelessness, loss of interest in things that once mattered, irritability, or complete emotional numbness, feeling useless, like a burden, wanting to escape from motherhood. And most heartbreakingly, many mothers don't realize they're depressed. They just think they're not good enough. Postpartum depression isn't a label to judge. It's a signal that the mother needs to be heard, supported, and rested, truly. Understanding postpartum depression doesn't weaken the mother. On the contrary, it's the first step toward saving her. Signs that few people talk about, but many experience. Not every mother with postpartum depression cries all day. Not everyone looks devastated or helpless. Many mothers look fine, and that's why their pain is even harder to see. There are very small, very ordinary signs. So small that even the mother herself can't name them. They wake up each morning feeling exhausted even though they didn't sleep less than usual the night before. Their bodies still move, their hands still care for their babies, but inside they feel heavy as if carrying stones. Joy doesn't disappear completely, it just becomes very distant. One of the most common signs is a feeling of emptiness. Not intense sadness, not obvious pain, just a lack of feeling. It's as if emotions are drained away, leaving an unnameable void. Some mothers say they look at their children but don't feel an immediate connection. This frightens them, because society always says, motherhood is unconditional love. So when love doesn't come in the way described, mothers turn to doubting themselves. Another sign is feeling like a bad mother, even without clear evidence. They blame themselves for very small things, for being irritable, for being tired, for not being as patient as they thought they should be. This self-blame is constant, silent. No one needs to tell them. They tell themselves enough. Many mothers also experience constant anxiety, worrying they've done something wrong, worrying their child isn't okay, worrying about the future, worrying about things that haven't happened yet. Their minds are constantly racing, but leading them nowhere. There are times when they find themselves more easily angered than usual. Not because they are ill-tempered, but because they have been exhausted for too long. Anger becomes the body's way of saying, I can't take it anymore. Another sign, one few dare to speak of, is the desire to disappear for a while. Not to abandon their child, not to not love their family, just a longing to rest from the role of motherhood, even if only for a little while. These thoughts make the mother afraid of herself. They think, Why am I thinking like this? And because of fear, they become even more silent. Postpartum depression can also manifest as isolation. The mother no longer wants to talk, doesn't want to meet people, doesn't want to explain her feelings, because she doesn't understand them herself. They may avoid seemingly caring questions. How are you? Is being a mother enjoyable? Because they don't know how to respond properly. It's important to clarify. Right finger, these signs don't make you weak. They're signals that you've been trying too hard for too long without rest. They're the body and mind speaking up when words are no longer enough. Many mothers only realize this when they're already deeply exhausted. Not because they're not smart, but because they've become accustomed to putting their own needs after everyone else's. If you've read this far and see yourself in it, that doesn't mean you have a problem. It just means you need help. And needing help is never something to be ashamed of. Why do so many mothers not dare to ask for help? Not because they haven't suffered enough. Not because they don't need help. But because there are so many reasons why a mother believes silence is the safest option. The first, and most common, reason is the fear of judgment. Motherhood seems to mean being good enough from the start. A tired mother is met with sympathy. But a mother who is sad, desperate, or says she's not okay, is easily viewed with suspicion. They fear being asked, "You have a healthy child, why are you still sad? Why are you so weak? Are you overthinking things?" These questions aren't necessarily malicious, but for someone who is fragile, they are enough to make them shut their mouths. The second reason is the fear of being seen as a bad mother. Many mothers believe that if they express their negative feelings, it will become proof that they are unworthy. Not loving enough, not strong enough, not mature enough. They forget that a good mother is not someone who never gives up, but someone who dares to admit when she's not okay. But society rarely teaches that. The third reason, deeper and more painful, is the fear of being separated from their child. There are mothers who have heard or read somewhere that if you are depressed, others will think you are not safe enough to care for your child. So they choose to endure. Endure so no one will question it. Endure to hold on to the only role they think they cannot afford to lose. They don't know that seeking support won't make them lose their child. Conversely, it helps them have the strength to stay with their children for longer. Another, more subtle, barrier is the habit of self-suffering. Women, especially mothers, are often praised for their sacrifices, for their patience, for putting others first. Over time, they learn to ignore their own signals. They learn to say, "It's okay," even when they're completely exhausted. They think that the emotions will eventually pass, that they just need to try a little harder, that they shouldn't bother anyone. But some pains don't disappear because they're ignored. They only become heavier when they're not called upon. Another, less frequently discussed, is not knowing where to turn for help. A mother may realize she's not okay, but doesn't know who to talk to. Family is busy, friends are drifting away, but calling them psychologists sounds too serious. They're caught in a void. They know they need help, but don't know where to begin. And ultimately, there's a very human reason. They think they don't deserve help. They look around and see others struggling even more. They tell themselves, "At least I have a home, children, and family." Complaining now is selfish, but pain isn't a competition. And no one needs to hit rock bottom to be allowed to ask for help. When a mother doesn't dare speak out, it's not because she's weak. It's because she's been taught for too long to be strong at all costs. Understanding this isn't about blaming anyone, but about reminding mothers of something very important. Right finger silence isn't instinct, it's something they've been taught. And anything that is taught can be learned again. What needs to be clarified? Relief. HEALING. There are some things that need to be made clear. Not to argue, not to prove anything, but so that weary mothers stop turning the knife on themselves. First, right finger, you are not broken. No part of you is faulty. There is nothing wrong with how you feel about life right now. You are reacting to too much change, too much pressure, too little rest, and that is a normal human reaction. The fact that you don't feel as happy as everyone says doesn't mean you're a bad mother. It just means you are being true to your experience. Second, right finger, you are not selfish. Self-care isn't abandoning your child. Wanting to rest isn't irresponsible. Wishing to be yourself again isn't betraying your role as a mother. You can't pour water from an empty cup. And admitting you're tired is the first step to refilling that cup. Third, right finger, you're not alone, though that feeling is very real. Many mothers around you have felt the same way, they just don't talk about it. The loneliness of postpartum depression doesn't come from not having anyone around. It comes from feeling like no one truly understands. But that doesn't mean you're the only one. It just means this story has been hidden for too long. Fourth, and very important, right finger, postpartum depression is treatable. Not with a single positive statement. It's not about trying harder, but about providing the right support at the right time. Some people need to be listened to. Some people need real rest. Some people need professional support. There's no one-size-fits-all approach, but there's always a way for each individual. Fifth point, right finger, the fact that you're learning and listening to these things is already a great effort. You may not be ready to speak up, not ready to seek help, not ready to change anything right now, but stopping and asking yourself, am I not okay, is already an act of courage. Healing doesn't begin with big actions. It begins with honesty with yourself. Finally, it's important to clarify, right finger, you don't need to be happy right now. There's no set time frame for getting okay. There's no deadline for being a happy mother. You're allowed to go slow. You're allowed to be tired. You're allowed to need help. Motherhood doesn't stop you from being human. You still have limits. You still have feelings. You still need care, no less than the child you love. If there's one thing you take with you after this, let it be this. Right finger, you deserve healing, not because of how good a mother you are, but simply because you are human. A small but practical path. Once you've said you're not okay, the next thing a mother often fears is the question, what do I do now? The good news is, you don't need to do anything big. Healing doesn't begin with life-changing actions. It begins with very small, but real steps. The first, and most important, step is allowing yourself to speak out, even if it's just to one person. No need for a full presentation. No need for elaborate explanations. Just a very honest statement. I'm not okay lately. Being a mother is harder than I thought. That person could be your partner, an old friend, a non-judgmental family member, or even a complete stranger who is a safe haven. Speaking out doesn't solve everything immediately, but it breaks the isolation, which is what makes depression so severe. The second path is rest, in the truest sense of the word. Not just scrolling through your phone, not just doing something lighter, but actually stopping. Rest can be small. Close your eyes for 5 minutes and do nothing. Drink a glass of water in silence. Go out onto the balcony and take a few deep breaths. These things may sound too simple, but for someone who is exhausted, they are fundamental recovery. The third path is to lessen the burden of having to be the perfect mother. No one awards a medal to a mother who sacrifices herself to the point of exhaustion. And your child doesn't need a perfect mother. They need a mother who still has the strength to stay. Allow yourself not to do everything perfectly, not to react gently all the time, not to be in control of everything. Letting go doesn't make you worse. It lets you breathe. The fourth path is to seek professional support when needed, not when it's too late. Many mothers only seek professional help when they've reached their breaking point. But the truth is, you don't need to hit rock bottom to ask for help. Seeing a psychologist doesn't mean you have a serious problem. It just means you're serious about your health, like when you go for a physical examination. And if you're not ready to see one in person, reading, listening to, or watching safe content is also a form of initial support. The fifth path, and very important, is to talk to yourself in a gentler tone. Instead of, I can't even do this one thing. Try this. I did my best today. Instead of, I'm so weak. Try this. I'm tired, and tiredness needs care. You don't have to believe these words immediately. Just don't keep hurting yourself. And finally, the smallest but truest path is, right finger, go slowly, slower than you think is necessary. There's no recovery schedule, no getting better milestone. There will be days when you feel better. And there will be days when you feel just as bad. That doesn't mean you're regressing. It just means you are human. This path isn't glamorous. It's not intensely inspiring. But it's real. And if you're here, reading these lines, then perhaps you've already taken the first steps, even if they're very small. A message to silent mothers. If you've made it this far, through the previous sections, perhaps you're not looking for advice. Perhaps you just want to know that I'm not the only one. If you are a silent mother, smiling when others watch, struggling every day without knowing why you're so tired, I want you to hear this. You don't need to be happy right now. You don't need to know exactly what to do next. You don't need to be stronger. You just need to breathe. To stop. To acknowledge that motherhood is harder than people say. Maybe you haven't told anyone today. You're not ready to ask for help. You're not strong enough to change anything. But the fact that you are listening, reading, or watching these things is already a very real step. You are still here, and that's enough for today. Motherhood isn't about sacrificing your whole self. You are still you, with your own feelings, limitations, and needs. You deserve care, not because of how good a mother you are, but because you are a human being trying to survive a very difficult time. If at any point you feel overwhelmed, please remember, silence isn't the only option. Somewhere, there is someone ready to listen. And if you haven't found him today, hopefully these words can be with you for a little while. You are not alone, and you don't have to go through this alone.